Okay, I think next we have got a really exciting surprise guest for you all, but to introduce the surprise guest, we have another surprise. So.
Hey there, Thomas Cox here with a quick introduction of your upcoming speaker. Very excited to be able to introduce a little bit of a surprise for you. I'm here in the lobby of the building of the Block 1 headquarters in Virginia recording this, and I'm not there with you, and I'm really sorry. Welcome to the EOS London meetup. Thank you, EOS 42, for organizing this. And thank you for lining up the amazing speakers you're about to meet. Two people who have taught me an enormous amount about governance, about what it means to have a governed blockchain. And you're going to learn a ton from them too. Please welcome Eva Stowe and Ian Grigg.
Welcome. There we are. Sound. Yes, so we're here for a bit of a surprise for us too. We just had an emergency flight out here, so we thought, well, why not be here and talk about governance in EOS. There we go. A little bit about us. These are unapproved comments, etc., etc. Nobody necessarily has more than an opinion about what's going to happen. We are going into a very different era. Nobody's ever done this before, but what the hell, let's do it. A little bit about us. What we want to talk about is why governance. Some time ago, 13 months ago, March this time last year, we were sitting around the table trying to work out what to do about governance, about the world of blockchains. And the one question kept coming back, where's the business? Where's the meat? Where's the activity? Where's the real transaction flow? And this conversation really bugged us because we didn't have an answer, but we worked at it and we eventually figured out, if you like, at least a hypothesis, which is what I want to bring to you today. Obviously, EOS is just another blockchain, especially to the competitors, but we thought we had a bit of an advantage there. The thing there is that, okay, so what are the other blockchains doing? They're all copying each other, of course. That's good, that's good. But if you look at all the business that's going on, most of it is a copy, or it's a recursive, self-fulfilling business, in the sense that what Ethereum is doing, a lot of Ethereum stuff is doing, is creating the missing bits of Ethereum. There's various crypto distributed exchanges, there's various identity solutions, all sorts of things which are built in, should be built into the primary platform, or should be available, and now they are being built out as ICOs, etc., etc. What is there that is not actually anything to do with blockchain? There's Steam, and now there's CryptoKitties. This is kind of unfortunate. We have built a, what is it, a $500 billion enterprise at this stage, and all we've produced is Steam and CryptoKitties. We've got more to do. So if we look into blockchain, get a deeper view of it, the starting position seems to be that we've immediately got a fork in thinking. We've got permissioned and unpermissioned chains. And the result of this, of course, is, yes, you have a fork in the communities and so forth, a fork in thinking, but essentially you've got this notion that you can only do business in a permissioned chain, and what do we do in the unpermissioned chain? In the unpermissioned chain, and this is the starting point, this is the real thinking, because the whole notion of Bitcoin gives us this opening up of thinking process. So we have automated what is simple to be done. We've created this thing that allows us to automate simple things, and it leaves the complicated things to the users. And from that point of view, we're talking about smart contracts, dApps, and so forth. But it's also a bit of a Wild West. It's anarchical. There are no rules of what happens in the social sphere or the trading sphere, the business sphere of how things go on in the Bitcoin style of blockchain. And consequently, we get a lot of disasters. We get these black swans, a whole list of events which have happened, which have stolen a lot of money. Now, some people say that's how the system works, and therefore we should accept that. But other people say that's actually not a good idea. And specifically, the entrepreneur, the business, maybe you guys here, who here considers themselves to be an entrepreneur? Quite a lot. Your problem, I think, is that you're going to spend, say, 3 to 24 months. You're going to invest a lot of cash. You're going to put down development operations. You're going to employ a lot of people. And then at some point, one of these black swans is going to hit you, and you're going to lose everything. That's the downside. That would keep you awake at night. So why, in that sort of circumstance, for Bitcoin, Ethereum, and so forth, why would you invest your life savings in a business on blockchain? And I think that is the fundamental problem that we're trying to fix with EOS. So in essence, if you like, what we're trying to say is EOS is going to build a blockchain. EOS.io, the software company, Block.one, is going to build a blockchain for the business, which means we're going to build a blockchain in which we can solve the really massive disasters. So how do we do that? If you look at the permissioned blockchains can solve these disasters. There will be disasters in all sorts of software systems. If there's one thing we know how to do after, what, 50, 60 years of writing software, we know how to write buggy software. There are going to be collapses. Permissioned blockchains allow that to be sorted out because we only have a certain number of players, we've vetted them, and everybody backs off when there's a problem. But the problem is that having created that notion of a certain set of players, we call this a walled garden, only a certain number of people come into the walled garden. Therefore, we have the problem that whoever lets these people in is in control of the space. And he who controls also extracts, so the costs rise, and eventually the small players are excluded. They can't afford the cost. It's not explicit, it's not deliberate exclusion, but the result is always the same. Compliance, costs, and so forth cause the small players to be excluded, and then the problem is that a bit later on, the economy inside the walled garden stagnates because the small players are where the innovation comes from. So we have this problem that the walled garden is that situation. It's got a set of rules. We like that. We need some sense of how things are going. We need a method for applying those rules. They'll figure that out. And we need consequences. You can be kicked out of a walled garden. But it's got that gate and the gatekeeper, which raises fees and causes problems. Eventually it becomes, if you like, a super controlled space. You could call it indolence and corruption, or you could just call it a regulated sphere. So what we're proposing in EOS is a hybrid, a third space. We're saying that, yes, we'll keep the rules of behavior, we'll keep the human governance, the human rules around, but we'll still allow the free entry. And how do we do that? How do we do governance? Take both.
Yes, how do we do governance? Okay, I think most of you have heard about block producers now. You have some idea. We have those 21 block producers, and they are lined up and everything, so that's what probably most of you have heard about. The very important part here is that they are controlled by the community. If you just take 21 people and they stay there all the time, we cannot rely on them. So it's important that everybody else gets a chance to get in there. And this is the reason why this system works. So that if those 21 do crap or do something bad, all the community steps in and says, well, okay, this is bad, we have another candidate, and this candidate is chosen. So we don't only have block producers, we have a community, and this community is crucial for this approach. And well, the other reason why the block producers are doing what they are doing, and hopefully are doing it well, is not only that we have this bad thing going on, this bad loop going on, but we also have a positive incentive. We have this inflation that is going to them, and they can do with it what they want, and hopefully will do something to increase their business, the system and everything, and help us to get a better change. So this is their reward for continuing a good service. But we, the community, are the relevant part here, and we together form the referendum, because everybody can join the referendum, which is a group of those who vote for the block producers, but not only for the block producers, also for the rules that apply for EOS. Not the code. The code is following the rules, but we have rules written how the block producers should behave, how everybody should behave, and everything like this. This is called the Constitution. And everybody who has a token, who has an EOS, can line up for voting. And yeah, then you get a vote, as we already heard. And then you can say, I want this, I want that, and everything. So it's very important that everybody joins in, so that there are a lot of different voices. Yes. I spoke about the Constitution. This is very important because this is a rule that we give ourselves. This is why everybody wants to do the same, because we agree to them. These are rules that we define in the referendum. Everybody has a vote. They will be defined by the community, and the final version will be defined after the chain is running by the community, by those who hold the tokens. And because everybody agrees to them or has a vote in them, everybody is more inclined to follow those rules. And if they would just be given by somebody, it would be different. But if it's our rules, if it's our constitution, we have an incentive to follow them. Because if we don't like a rule, we can change it. And if there's not enough others who agree to change it, well, we have to follow the majority. So this is our chance to get the best solution of rules, how to do our business, how to do this chain. And everybody then can not say, well, it's not what I want, because they had a vote in it. And if they don't want it, they can leave. But they can also try to convince others. Well, so we have three heads of powers. We have heard about the block producer, we have heard about the referendum, and later on I will speak about, I will just come to arbitration. But this is what we know from other situations. So we have the executive, which is very important, that the block producers do the chain. They decide which transactions are there, which we want, and they execute the code. But this is a very hard task to do, and they are full done. They have no more time to do anything else. The referendum is then there to decide, are they doing a good job or not, and to decide the rules and everything. So it's the legislative, and we need something else. We need to have a way to decide who's bad, who's good. Besides of just doing bad or good work, we need to find the bad swans and to solve them. Yeah, so we have arbitration. So the first question is, why arbitration? This is a question that we hear all the time. It's not a new thing. It's something that is there since forever. People are doing it since forever, since before the Romans were there, since before the Germans were there, since everybody was there. Because you have a dispute. You have one, somebody says it's my money, the other body says it's my money, and you need to solve it. Technically, it's just that we ensure that the rules are applied. That if the rules are not applied, we have some place to go for. But we also decide over theft, we decide over the day, we decide about, well, if you are really doing bad, and we don't want those, as we heard before, we don't want the thieves, we don't want the bandits, we want to have good players so that the businesses come here, so that it's safe for them. So we need a way to expel those who are not to be there because they are hurting everybody else, and their own goal is more important for them than the goal of everybody else, in a manner that they are up there to harm others. And this is not what we want. So how arbitration actually works is that we provide skin in the game for everybody, because if everybody can be caught, if the thief can be made responsible, then we have a way to control the thieves, at least to a point, or we can control the block producers by our governance, and we can control others to behave, and that's actually what is working out there all the time. What is working in the real world, what's working in the real business. There's courts everywhere, there's arbitration everywhere. That's how people are made responsible, and they feel this responsibility, and only if you have this feeling, if you know that somebody can come and drag you and make you responsible, you will follow the rules. Others will do it, or most people will do it anyway, but those who consider to do something bad possibly will not do so if there is a way to follow them up. So everybody had skin in the game, regardless of what they stake. And this is there to protect everyone. And it's also to protect those who are accused, because it's not a mob who's acting. That's the first alternative that we would have to an arbitrator. That, well, everybody points to the bad person or the bad player or the possibly bad player, but maybe it just was a mistake, maybe it just was a bug and there was no bad intention, and they would do anything to resolve it, to provide the money back, to do anything. Or there even was not the person who was acting, it was somebody else who was acting. So killing by the mob is not what is a good solution. So we have a due process. And the other idea would go to leave it as it is, and this would be to local courts. So, like, well, maybe it's America, maybe it's India, maybe it's China, maybe it's Russia, or whoever the other person is, and they would drag you there in their jurisdiction. And that is also not helping if we have an international chain. And, or we could throw a lot of money on consisting arbitration systems which are there, but they are not aligned with blockchain. They know nothing about blockchain. They are lawyers, mostly, or other professionals, but they don't have an idea about what our business is. So they are probably not finding a good solution for our issues. And this is why we want our own arbitration. And actually, this is what others are doing all the same. If they have a new industry, if they have something new in a new field, they are doing their own arbitration. So why arbitration? Yes, there are those black swans, and currently nobody has an answer to those black swans. Well, they wiggle out somehow, or they fork or something, but even those fork don't always provide a real answer to the question that was there, and especially they don't give the money back. But if we have arbitration, we can provide the money back to those who lost the money in a manner that was not meant to be, because there was a bug or because there was somebody frauding or something. This provides trust into the actions that are done, because we can rely that if something fails, it will be fixed, or there is a way to fix it and to show others, well, yes, this is our issue, and well, fix it. And this will provide to a win-win situation for everybody, because we now have a manner to enter into businesses that we didn't have before, because we have reliable businesses. And this is an approach that gives us the ability to do trade even with people that we are not so sure about, because we have a way to get to back them afterwards. So it provides the safety of the business that businesses have there out in the world. And this leads business, hopefully, or apparently, to invest into the chain, or to invest in their businesses, and to try out this chain, and to go there and to do their business. You get the investment. The question is, how is this arbitration working? This is probably a question that most people don't know about, but well, it's how it is working. So first you have a dispute. You have a question that you cannot solve by yourself. If you can solve it by yourself and by your business partner, fine. Or if you can go to mediation or whatever, or if the rules or if the smart contracts already solve the issue, great. Then we don't need arbitration. But there are enough situations where this is not sufficient, where it's not working. We saw this another change, and we see it in daily life. It's what is happening all the time. So if you have this dispute, we file it. there will be, I don't know if it will be DApp or something like this, probably a DApp, and we file the dispute. The other party will be informed. If we don't inform the other party will be informed, so all involved parties are on the same side, and they know about it and can prepare. And then there will be an arbitrator appointed in a manner so that he is neither friend of one party or the other party, that he is independent from both parties. It will be independent, and probably by the system, maybe the parties get a word whom they want or don't want to have as an arbitrator, but, well, it's a neutral person. And this arbitrator then will hear the statements of both parties. It will include what do you think went wrong, what do you think is what you want as a resolution, what are the rules why you think that this should happen. It could be in the contract, could be in the smart contract, could be in the constitution, could be something or local law or whatever. And then the arbitrator, so they also will get a chance to answer the entries of the other person. So it's both-sided. And then the arbitrator will think about what he has heard, or she, and then the arbitrator will provide a transparent ruling. Everybody will be able to see the ruling. Maybe not the details of the case, because there could be privacy elements, but the fact that there was a case and the fact that there was a ruling and what kind of ruling was there will be transparent for everybody. So it's not a secret thing. And then the result will be there, and it has to be executed by the parties or by the block producers or maybe by even others, maybe by an exchange or whoever. Will be depending on the case. And probably there will be a way to appeal the case if the ruling was really bad. Because it's not just, I don't like it, but if you can point to this went bad in this arbitration, the arbitrator did something wrong, didn't listen to me, or was completely one-sided, or even was corrupt or something, then you can appeal it. Well, the last thing that we get, or not the last thing, the final thing out of the arbitration as such is the ruling. I want to say some words on the ruling. The first thing that I already mentioned is that it is published. So it is reviewable by everybody, and it is something that you can look at up before you enter your own case. Maybe it also gives you already the answer to your own situation. We will create a lot of precedents by this, so that we can solve cases in the future without even going to the arbitrator, maybe, if the other party accepts it. And it will include a summary of the facts that the arbitrator found, which is very important, so that we can see why did the arbitrator think that this is the result that is needed, and what did he consider, what is the basis of the ruling. And also then you can compare your own situation to this. Are you in the same place that they were, or is it differently? So you don't see just the result, you just see what was the starting point for the thoughts of the arbitrator. Then the logic of the rules that are applied. So there probably are a lot of rules depending on the specific contract or the specific smart contract that was used. And those are relevant for the ruling. And there will be some part discussed in the ruling, and especially the logic of the decision is there. So why is it ruled like this? And this is the point where you can catch a bad arbitrator, because if this description is just, there isn't a description, or well, it's no logic there at all, you will see that the arbitrator probably didn't do a good job, and this will get back to the arbitrator. And well, so this is a way to provide good rulings and to catch bad arbitrators. And that is our way to control that the arbitrators do a good job, because writing a ruling is already a very hard thing. Writing a ruling with a flawed logic is even worse. And if the arbitrator at the end has to sign it by their own name, well, it's not looking good for the arbitrator at the end. And that's why this transparent ruling is very important for us. That it's not secret, that we can see what is happening there. And well, at the end, we also get the resolution of the case, which will possibly some order to the parties, some fines and stuff like this. But also, it will solve the situation and define what the answer to the original question is, which helps others. Well, all in all, the very important part here is independence. the independence of all who are involved in the chain, the independence of the block producers, we probably already know about that, but also the independence of the arbitrators, which is crucial for every case. So there probably shouldn't be block producers or anybody or related to any other big players. And, which is also very important, it would be very good if we get a lot of independent voters, because they are those who select the block producers, also some way the group of the basis of the arbitrators, not the arbitrator for every specific case, but who can be an arbitrator to begin with. And also our rules, the constitution, they are all defined by the voters, and we need independent voters. And we need independence from different backgrounds, from different industries, and different whatever they have studied or whatever. But we also need different legislations, so that not everybody is coming from one place, but that we have it spread over the world for all of them, block producers, arbitrators, and voters. And, well, we need more of them everywhere, and that's where you should be. Do you have time?
Yep, this is working.
Yoskis, question on the arbitrators. How are they incentivized? Like they ain't going to do it for free?
Well, yes. The first incentive is, well, this transparency. They are signing their cases in their own names, which is, well, they work on the reputation system. And the arbitration is a very, very hard personal work, so you probably only get people who are up to this personal work. And others will very quickly learn that this is not something that really pays out so much. So they are solving the big cases for others. And, well, they get money, they get fees. Yeah, we have to select them. And they have to be respectable. So they first will have a trial phase where they are trying out their cases, how they're trying out rulings, and then we decide, yes, we're a good arbitrator or not a good arbitrator. And we have to do a good choice there.
There is probably going to be some form of worker proposal to make sure that arbitrators are on salary or on fixed amounts of money so that they can be independent of any particular case.
Yeah, and they are chosen in a manner so that they probably have no, or hopefully have no connection to those who are there to begin with.
Are there any other questions?
Thank you for the presentation. Hopefully the slides will be made available. But the question here is there a country where this will be a jurisdiction of, and how can you enforce the rules? Will it be taken to court somewhere? And how do you deal with that?
So we didn't get really into the depth of that, of how this works, but arbitration is a legal method to resolve disputes.
Which jurisdiction are you?
Yeah. So choice of law is a clause that will have to be in the Constitution. The choice of law could be a particular country, or it could be a particular body of law. Typically, you would do something like, we choose the choice of law of London, or of New York, or of China, or of wherever. That is a debate that has to happen, and it has not been chosen, and it has not even been thought about. For what it's worth, I'll say two things about choice of law. One is, everybody thinks their law is better than the next guy's, and they can't all be right. Secondly, our experience, we did all this sort of stuff in a group called CA-CERT, and it ran successfully for 10 years. Our experience was that the choice of law that we had worked extremely well because we had almost nobody in that place. That place was New South Wales, Australia, the ends of the earth. We had 3 people there out of 20,000, and therefore it didn't matter. There was no bias, there was no home advantage, no team advantage. So I would advise you to look for somewhere where we aren't.
Well, I was an arbitrator in this situation, and another element that I can say is that it really doesn't matter so much, because most of what is relevant in situations is defined in the contracts that you are doing, because this is what is relevant for you, and everything else is mostly somehow done in a comparable manner in a lot of countries. So the general idea of law is more or less the same, and the details you define in your contracts usually. And another thing is, well, arbitration is accepted by, I don't know, most of the countries. There are very few who don't accept the International Arbitration Act. And this Arbitration Act says, if you agree to an arbitration, and everybody here agrees to the Constitution, and by this agrees to our arbitration clause in the Constitution, if everybody agrees, we are contracted into arbitration, and if you are contracted into arbitration, you go to arbitration first, and only if you can afterwards show that this arbitration was done in a manner that is unacceptable, then you can go to a court. If you cannot show this, you have to deal with arbitration.
I'm going to ask probably the final question before we have to move on. Mine was about the extent to which arbitration is actually applicable and enforced within EOS, because I've seen some varying views about it could be anything from the go-to for reversing of various transactions down to something more purist about just, say, enforcement of block producer behavior. And I was wondering if you had thoughts on that.
Arbitration is a method at law, so it is enforceable. The arbitration ruling can be taken into courts around the world and enforced. Most of the time, that will never happen. Most of the time, everybody is a good actor and will follow the rules and will want to maintain their position in the community. When it comes down to it, enforcement is the sort of thing that will be primarily pushed to the parties. And if the parties don't do it themselves, then there might be the block producers get involved, etc., etc. What was the second part of your question?
Kind of cases.
Oh, the kind of cases, yeah. So in practice, the cases, we expect cases, for example, of theft. We expect cases of problems to do with the software blowing up, as it does, because it has bugs. But you will find that actually there are a whole bunch of issues popping up that we don't expect. And there's a reason for that. If we knew what they were going to be, we would fix them up front in the code or the rules or behavior. We are in the domain of we don't expect this to happen. So therefore, the cases will be very broad. We won't get a lot of theft cases. We won't get a lot of DAOs. We'll get a few. But we'll get a whole range of things, and therefore your arbitrator has to be somebody who's very broad, wise, has good judgment, can sit back and think carefully about what's going on.
Well, as an example, in CSR, I think we had about 600 cases or something, I don't know. In CSR, 600 cases or something. In advance, there were also those sorts, what kind of cases we would have, and more or less 5 kinds of cases were even mentioned in our dispute resolution policy. And 4 of those situations never appeared. One of them appeared maybe 5 or 6 times, and all the other cases were about things that were not considered in advance. So that's how the range of cases would be. Sure, some of them, sure, we know that they will happen, but that's clear.
Okay, great. Ian and Eva, thank you so much for your time. Thank you.